Hello, everybody. Tim Hughes here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite. With me today, I've got Sarah Browning, and we're going to be talking about kindness. What is it? How can we spot it? What we should be doing with it? And we're going to be talking about, most of all, how we can, as I say, how we can see it. Because we tend to be wrapped up in our own little worlds and that. And Sarah, where can people find you?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me, first and foremost. I just said to you, I am always ready to talk about kindness. So it's great to be here and have this conversation. So I have a website, timeforkindness.co.uk. And I am also on LinkedIn, Sarah Browning, and I talk all things kindness and communication.
Excellent. What is kindness?
Well, now, it's an interesting question to start with, isn't it? Because there is no single definition, and there are various ones that I use within the workshops that I run and in conversations I've had with people over the years. But essentially, it comes down to doing something for somebody else, or indeed for yourself, that makes their day a bit better, that does something positive for them. And at the heart of it, that, simply put, that's what it comes down to.
It's because I'm one of these people. It annoys my partner because I'll just drift off, and it will because I would have seen these. We were in the museum the other day, and these two old people came in and they were like, and I'm sort of like just checking that they're okay because there was a step and I didn't touch them, I didn't speak to them, and I didn't afterwards say. Judy said, "So what happened?" I said, "Oh, they just had an angel of kindness, basically. Look out for them." I mean, is that, or should we be going up to people and saying, "I've just been kind to you"?
Well, either or, to be honest, and or perhaps even. So I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because one of the things that comes up quite often is exactly that. What counts as kindness? And some people will say to me, but that's just good manners, or that's just what I do. It's how I was brought up. It's just, what you do. And my personal feeling is it doesn't have to be either or, actually, that, particularly when, so there's a lot of evidence and there's an increasing body of academic research that shows kindness has a positive impact. It makes us feel good, whether we're involved in it, whether we're the recipients, and even when we notice it. And it gives us that boost. It makes us feel positive, makes us smile. And so my feeling is, if it makes us feel good, why don't we label it kindness anyway? Let's have that. Yes, it might be good manners. Yes, it might be, to hold a door open for somebody, as you said, to check something for somebody. That might be good manners, but actually it is also a kindness. So let's feel positive about that as well.
Yes. Yes, there was a couple near here, and they got to the pedestrian crossing, and I would suspect the husband probably had dementia or something. They got to pedestrian crossing and it wasn't beeping, he just walked.
Right.
And so I basically stood in the road and went like this, and he carried on walking, and his wife's pressing the button and stuff like that, and it was just a case of I need to but I mean, in a way that made me feel good. But I agree with you. If actually someone opens the door for you, I always say thank you, because actually that's thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know, but do you get some sort of, maybe you get some dopamine or something, but I get something in here where thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, for me, that speaks to, I think kindness can sometimes have a bad reputation, if you like, in the sense that people who don't support kindness or are not keen on kindness, it is often because they think it's weak. And they think it's fluffy. And actually, I fundamentally disagree with that. I think kindness is incredibly strong and powerful. And one of the reasons I think it's powerful is because it connects us as human beings. And as you've just demonstrated with that example, even for that brief minute, you were connected to that man and his wife because you were involved in something and you were helping them and you were, saving him or whatever it was. I think that's what makes it powerful, because it does connect us. And it's not always the easy choice either, presumably you had to put yourself in the road, or
I did. I stood in the road.
Some kind of danger.
Yeah.
So that's a sort of, that's one example. But even, that you can be kind to somebody when you don't agree with them. That's also, not easy to do, but it is still kindness, and there is still that kind of human connection there. So, I think that's really important, and we need to make sure that we hold on to that and don't lose that aspect.
So what isn't kindness?
Well, often, and I think this is where sometimes this kind of weak, fluffy thing comes from, is the idea that kind is the same as nice. And it isn't, they're not the same thing. And, there's nothing wrong with being nice, nice to be nice and all that. But kindness is sometimes, and particularly in a work context, in a professional environment, but also within families and so on, kindness can be having a difficult conversation. And actually the sort of nice thing to do sometimes is to, not go there, not have that difficult conversation, not talk to your employee who perhaps is not performing in their role, or there's something, going on. But actually that isn't kind, because that individual that's not performing, you're not being kind to them because you're setting them up to fail. Sometimes you're not helping them to improve. There might be some reason behind their poor performance, that they've got something going on and they need more support. And then also the people around them, what often happens if you've got someone who's not pulling their weight, people around them will often pick up the slack, and frustration builds, and you get those sorts of things going on. So actually, that isn't kind. And so the thing to do there is to step in and have that difficult conversation. You don't have to. I certainly don't believe in being cruel to be kind. I'm not here for that phrase either. I think you can have difficult conversations with kindness, but it is having that conversation is the point.
Yeah, I went to a presentation recently of a very inspirational one of there's a lady in India who she's set up schools in the slums of Mumbai, and she teaches the people about schools and manners and stuff like that, because she wants them to go on and her thing is that someone went to Cambridge, and one of her children went to Cambridge and stuff. Yeah. When asked the children, but when they talk about kindness, a lot of them actually say, if I'm kind, it shows I'm weak.
Yeah. It's really difficult, isn't it? Because, it is also always, situational and context specific, because actually, there is that line somewhere in terms of making sure that, you're not putting yourself at risk with the way you're behaving, and that sort of being kind that leads into naivety sometimes. I think that's a different thing. But just in terms of that story that we get told, this story that we have, that again, that kindness is weak and you'll get taken advantage of, and so on. Yes, that happens. But actually, overall, there are far more times when that doesn't happen. And I think, you said at the start of this conversation, one of the things we'll talk about is the power of noticing kindness. And I think that's one of those things, is that we need to be noticing the kindness more often, so that we have this story, this narrative that is more positive, but also that is also more true, that 9 times out of 10, you see a neighbour drop their shopping, you'll go and help them pick it up.
Yes.
Actually, you see a stranger drop their shopping in the street, most people will go and help them pick it up. And so, it's those kinds of things that we need to really be focusing on, and seeing what is actually happening, rather than believing this story that we get from our mainstream media, from certain sections of social media, that the world is a very bad place and everybody's out to get each other. Yes, that's true in some situations, but there's a lot of situations where that's not the case.
I think we get a lot of of people trying to scam us, don't we? And so quite often within our own little world, you'll pick up the phone and immediately there's some person trying to scam you for something on WhatsApp or something like that. So give us what in terms of kindness, what do you mean by being kind? What can we do to be kind?
Yeah, I think, like I said,
I know this sounds like a really simple question, but it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not simple, and sometimes people tie themselves up in knots over it. And so I think there is something about your intent, but also it's about thinking about what does the other person what's the situation like from their perspective? What do they need? And what will make their day better? Not necessarily what you think will make their day better. Sometimes it's that, but often it's thinking about. So I was listening to a podcast a few months ago, and somebody was talking about they'd been in New York, they'd seen somebody, a blind person, trying to cross the road, and they themselves had plenty, by chance it happened to be that there were several people within their own family that were blind, and so they felt, they were quite clued up on how to interact and how to help and so on and so on. So they saw this person and they went over to try and help them cross the road, and actually that individual got cross and said, no, I'm fine, I can do it. And so sometimes I think we can with the best of intentions not get it right, but actually what happens often is that holds people back. And I think we need to get braver and not let that stop us to actually have that thought and be intentional and do it as well as we think. But then if we do get it wrong, because we will from time to time, say sorry and own up to it, rather than take that as oh, well, that's it then. I'm not going to do it again.
You do see that. You see someone like coming up to a crossing and they've got like a white stick, and everybody like looks, and then they all look away as if, because they don't know what to do. Yes. And I was told, what you do is you just go up to, are you okay?
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah, I'm fine. Or could you just help us?
Yeah, absolutely. It comes down to connection again, doesn't it? And conversation, actually.
Yes.
Communicating.
And the other thing was about touching as well. Because years ago I was told what you need to do is put your arm, but I did that once and someone said, get off me. And it was like, and of course some people don't like me, and it's like, and so it's about, you kind of got to ask the question about how can I help you?
Yes.
And sometimes they'll say, they'll put their arm out. It's just really about asking questions, isn't it?
It is. And one of the kindest things you can do actually is improve your listening skills.
Yes.
Actually, very often, it is about listening. It is about, what is that person really saying? What are they not saying? Don't sort of bustle in thinking you know best, but really listen. And like you say, you might have been told something in one situation, in one scenario, but again, we're all human beings, we're all individual, we're all different, so it might be right in that situation but not in another. And so it's that listening helps you to really work out, okay, what do I need to be doing here, how can I actually help, rather than perhaps go through the sort of tick box of helping, that sort of thing.
So it is about, but being more aware of your environment to in effect to either help people or to do this piece of kindness.
Absolutely. And being aware just to notice what's going on around you as well. I think that's the other thing, like you said, we can get very caught up in our own little kind of world, and then we get hooked sometimes on, we see something negative and we get hooked up on that. But actually, if we, what I say to people is, if you find yourself always focusing on the negative aspect of a situation, or noticing a bad thing, as it were, then try and consciously stop, notice that you're doing it, stop and think, take it all like a sort of a metaphorical step back and think, is there another way of looking at this? Can I see something different? One of my favourite stories that was sent in to us at Time for Kindness some time ago was a shopping mall. The doors were broken, or most of the doors were broken. There was an older lady trying to come through with a little walker, and people were just streaming in, and she couldn't get out. And my friend who sent in the story, they saw what was happening and they stopped and let the little old lady come out. And it would be really easy in that story to say, well, of course, no one stops these days, typical, but someone did. So let's put our attention there, again, because it makes us feel better to notice that, and it starts to build that more positive a virtuous circle of noticing our world and what's really going on. But as you said, it starts with awareness. It starts with consciously taking time to have a look and see what's really going on.
Yeah, I remember when I'm on the tube on the London Underground, and I usually keep an eye out for people that come on, because I'm always looking out for the pregnant lady.
Yeah.
And either to give up my seat, or if I'm standing up, I've actually told people, do you mind getting up?
Yeah.
And and actually people, no one's ever threatened me. People actually say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see," and the rest of the carriage kind of like agree.
Yeah.
So it's not. So it's. I know what you're saying. That some people would, Well, I'm not going to say anything, and I won't look at her, and it will probably go away. But there's not. Most people actually recognise and say, "No, please have my seat."
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the other thing, isn't it? Let's not start with the idea that everyone is out to do bad stuff.
No.
Actually, most people, it's just, as you said, you're just not looking, you're not paying attention, you're not intentionally being, sort of negative. And again, so that's somewhere where, we can work together, if you like, to it doesn't have to just be on that one person to notice, that you can be an upstander rather than a bystander, that kind of thing, so that we can all connect with each other.
Because so we've been through, we understand what kindness is. We realize that we need to look at our outfit, but you also talk, don't you, about the outlook, which is to be more positive, to actually say, let's understand that there's kindness rather than necessarily take the negatives.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm not denying, clearly there's some bad stuff, there's some awful stuff going on. So this isn't about sort of toxic positivity, but it is about saying, let's have a more balanced view of the world. Let's be clearer about, actually, it isn't all negative. There is also good things. And what I find, and what people tell me when they've been to my workshops or they've been engaging with content online, is that it does change their view. It does become that, I'm not personally a driver, but people who are drivers tell me that, if you decide you want to buy a red car, suddenly you see red cars everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's similar with kindness. Once you start noticing it, there is a lot out there for you to see, in all sorts of different situations, in the workplace, in supermarkets, on public transport, with your neighbours, with your family. There are lots of them. And once you start to notice, you see more and more. And that brings that balance then of the world, which has got to be a good thing, hasn't it, for you personally and for us all collectively.
Yes, I remember there was a car crash near me. There's a cafe near me, and I was at the and I said, there's a car crash, and the first thing I said, was anybody killed? No. Okay, there was 2 ambulances. Okay, there was people to take into. Okay, that's bad. But I said it's just a bit of bent metal and rubber. I mean, the fact that nobody was killed is or badly hurt was the main thing. So I'm just trying to accentuate the positive from the fact that there was a car crash and people were running around going, "There's a car crash,"
Yeah.
Man falls asleep on park bench type.
Yeah.
Headline,
Yeah, and it's it for different. Each of us will have the types of things that we're more interested in or less interested in, or that we react to more or less. And one of the tips I give to people is, if you are a little more prone to seeing the negative or thinking about the negative or focusing on that side of things, is to create, when you're not in that situation, create things you can turn to remind yourself. Right. So obviously I would put in a plug for my Time for Kindness website and social media at this point, but it doesn't have to be that. Just a source, because the reason I say about Time for Kindness is because we share stories, examples of everyday kindness. So
basically you want people to send in stories of kindness.
We do, yes, absolutely, because we share at least one every day. Okay. We're not going to run out, but we are always looking for new, and it just creates that sort of feed that people can turn to for something more positive at any time, but particularly if you're feeling low or you need a reminder that good stuff is there.
Okay, and that's it. And is there anything else that we can be doing around kindness?
Talk about it.
Okay.
As simple as that. I think that's the other thing, is that we don't talk about kindness often enough. It is going on, and I want people to notice it, but I also want them to tell each other about it. I want them to have those conversations and get comfortable with using the language. I think because it can be sort of thought of as a bit weak and fluffy, people sometimes don't even want to say the word because they think they might be a bit, people will look down the noses at them. But no, let's reclaim it and let's talk about it, and share those stories with each other, because actually everyone says, "Oh, that's lovely, I love hearing that," so let's do it more often.
And it's one of those things, isn't it? What goes around comes around, isn't it? Which is, I'm a great believer in that. If you're kind to somebody, they're kind to somebody, and ultimately someone is kind to you, and you go, why did that happen?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's ripple effect, isn't it? It very much has that effect, and it might come back to it, it might not, but it often does, as you say. But it definitely has that ripple, and you don't necessarily know what ripple you have caused. You don't need to know, but the person you smiled and said hello to in the street, you might be the only person that's spoken to them today or this week, and you might have made their day, and you might never know, but it made their day, and it made the world a bit better.
I had a friend who got on the commuter train, and he's in a commuter train. Yeah, I'm going into London, and they decided to turn up at the station and smile at everybody, and you could see the lift.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's not a drudgery. It was like, oh, yeah, actually, I like smile, because smiling is a there's something about it, isn't there? Muscles. It makes you, it makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Because and that's the thing, kindness. I think sometimes the other thing that puts people off is they think it has to be something big and a grand gesture and be expensive. Actually, it doesn't. It can be, as you say, as simple as a smile. And yeah, I do that when I'm on the train or on the tube. I smile at people, and sometimes they smile back, sometimes they look at me like I'm a nutter. But either way, it's made me feel good at least, and then it's often it spreads. So we get a lot of stories sent into Time for Kindness from public transport,
right?
And I think that's probably because they are situations where a lot of people are coming together in a space. And so again, we have this idea that, as you said, commuter trains, it's awful, it's all negative and drudgery. Time for Kindness will tell you otherwise. There are plenty of examples of people giving up their seats, helping someone on the train or the bus with a bag. We've had stories of people having a whip round on a bus because somebody got on and they didn't have the change because they would only accept change. They had a whip round. And in fact, to your point of things, what goes around comes around, the next time those people caught a bus, they made sure they had enough change, and sure enough, it happened to someone else and they were able to donate to that one. So you just never know where it's going to lead.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on and talking about kindness. Fascinating conversation. Where can people get hold of you?
Thank you for having me. So I'm on LinkedIn as Sarah Browning. So come and find me there. And the website is timeforkindness.co.uk. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, sharing those stories. But if you start at the website, then you can see all the different things that we do.
And you'd love to get people's stories of kindness.
I would love to get people's stories of kindness. I would love to come and do workshops at your organisation, or give a keynote talk, or even get your event started. I have a little icebreaker that's based on kindness that sets a positive tone for people's meetings. Excellent. So there are lots of ways I would love to help.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.